Story, we will be discussing a pressing issue in Nigeria's education sector. The Academic Staff Union of Universities, that's ASUU, has issued a 2-week ultimatum to the federal government demanding the payment of withheld salaries to public university lecturers. The ASUU Chairman, Professor Emmanuel Osodeke, revealed that despite covering the work missed during the 2022 strike, lecturers were only paid for 4 out of the 7.5 months withheld.
He also emphasized the unfairness of the situation, especially as lecturers have been making significant sacrifices, including foregoing vacations and leaves. The union has threatened to stop rendering services if the government fails to pay the remaining salaries. This ultimatum highlights ongoing challenges in the education sector, including inadequate remuneration and funding. Now, joining us today is the chairman of ASUU, Professor Emmanuel Osodeke, who will provide further insights into these issues. A very good morning to you, Professor Osodeke, and thank you so much for coming on.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you.
Good to have you on, sir. Professor, now you mentioned that a 2-week ultimatum for the federal government to pay the remaining withheld salaries. Can you elaborate on the specific action ASUU plans to take if the government fails to meet this deadline, and what response have you received from government officials so far?
Thank you very much. The truth is that it's not just about withheld salary. There are about 6 issues: renegotiation of agreement, constitutional governing council, payment of the academic allowances that have been outstanding. Then we'll talk about the issue of remaining 3.5 months for a job that we have done. For my union, the president does not take a decision. What we have said that we are giving the government 2 weeks to address this issue, or we'll reconvene to look at all the issues and look at the next line of action. That's what we said. When we meet, we'll discuss as a democratic body, and we agree on what to do based on responses from our branches and from our members.
Okay, sir. Now let's talk about the well-being of your members. Now, the no work, no pay policy was invoked during the 2022 strike, but lecturers have since made up for the loss by, covering the missed work time. Now, how has this policy affected the morale and also the financial stability of the university staff? And what are the broader implications for the quality of education in Nigeria? Professor Osodeke, do we still have you?
Professor.
We might have lost the professor there. We're going to try and re-establish communication with the professor as we go along. But it's very interesting, that question which I asked, because whether you like it or not, if you take something out of a man, it's going to affect him morally.
Yeah.
So in this case, where you have plenty of, monies missing from your accounts, you're unable to do anything, and that's going to affect how you actually deliver your job, and that's the implication on the children you teach. Professor Osodeke is back with us. Professor, are you with us now?
Yes.
Fantastic. So, sir, I was asking about the well-being of your members regarding the loss that they have experienced when it comes to monies that haven't been paid to them. But I'm also asking how this, whether their policies or these policies, how they've affected the morale and financial stability of the staff.
Well, the impact is actually affecting the country, not just my members. If you have checked between the last strike, when they illegally we were ahead as in punishing as if you are casual workers, and today, no less than 1/5 of our members have left the country and go to other country to use that knowledge to develop other country. They've left. In addition, we have lost so many of our members. Quite a large number have died, and many are still hospitalized. And the great effect is on our system. It's on our future generation. It's on our country. So when you now wake up and say, instead of negotiating, you say, no work, no pay, you are not punishing lecturers alone. You are punishing the country, which is what the last regime did, and we are having the pain. So my idea, I hope this one, in the spirit of the new administration of the renewed hope, you pay all the backlog and allow the past go, and then we move forward. That is the way to go. We move forward as a country, not thinking about the past. Sit down and renegotiate the agreement that was concluded by the Ministry Committee and sign. Pay the economic allowances and revitalize fund that was in that 2023 budget. Then when you do this, there will not be any crisis in the system. We have been very patient, as we normally do. When a new government comes in, we give them time. And we are giving this government almost 1 year, and nothing has happened. So nothing significant has happened. So we do hope that within this short period, this government should be able to do something that will encourage our members to say, let's not take any action that will be detrimental to the system and to the country.
Let's talk about the implications of, all of the strikes and on the education sector, particularly the tertiary institution in Nigeria. You mentioned that while the government can award, road contracts worth trillions, it struggles to allocate 200 billion naira for Nigerian universities. How do you propose the government should balance its spending priorities to ensure that the education sector receives adequate funding?
Thank you very much. We took an average of budget allocation of education in West Africa, the budget allocation to West Africa. And the least country in West Africa, apart from Nigeria, gives 15% budget to education, but we give between 5 and 7. So that is the problem. And in every country, education should be the priority. Not else. No, we are not saying that should not be there, but the first priority, because any country that destroys education has destroyed that country. Now you want to do it, you run abroad. You are sick, you run abroad. If your system is working, would you run abroad? So there's a need for this government to prioritize education, the future of the country. Just like it was done in the 60s. When you go to the western region of Nigeria, in those days, that government of Awolowo was giving between 25 and 30% of budget to education. So that is where it should be. Is it possible? Yes. If you watch this year budget, 3 states, Abia State, 20-something%, Enugu State, 20-something%, Osun State, or your state, I'm sorry, 20-something%. So if this state can afford it, why can't the federal government also afford to give something higher, as promised, to education? Now, the implication is that our children are running all over the world. If we go to Sudan to school, our lecturers are, there's no country you go in West Africa, in Africa, you don't see a Nigerian lecturer lecturing. But you don't have any foreign one coming here, because we are seeing a country where a lecturer goes home with $300, equivalent of $300 a month. What would that do for you? When for alone will take almost all that money. So how will he do his work? How will he do his research? How will he do his publications? With this pantry sum of salary? And that's what we're talking about in negotiations in 2009.
Professor
Then the Banking Committee was set up. It didn't round up. Musa agreed. It was not implemented. Musa Committee, we reached an agreement for signing the dissolved, and so forth and so on. There's a need to look at this system, not just an individual, but about the system.
Right. You just highlighted Nigeria's, budgetary allocation to education, and you just said that it's significantly lower than, other West African countries, But look at the 2024 budget, right? It's about 1.4 trillion naira that's been allocated to Nigeria's education sector, with allocations ranging from, 4.5% to 7%, if you look at it in the West African part of it. And what specific strategies do you propose to advocate for the allocation? First of all, let's start with this. Is the 1.4 trillion naira enough? Has it been allocated? And if it's allocated, to what, how should the strategy, what kind of strategies should it be used in terms of implementation to meet standard, at least for West Africa?
Well, from our analysis, that figure you are giving, I don't know. Maybe we need to look at it again. In comparison to the total budget, what does it come out? What percentage went to the university? What percentage went, when you're talking, you are going to feed children, feed their school feeding, which we've never done. Look, what we are saying, implement the recommended average of a minimum of 15%. And then this thing will go. 2, the other avenue for funding that we can look at, that are in our agreement with we have drafted with the government, that if they look at it, we do not talk about funding. And 2, this money that we have talked about, what percentage will actually be released to the educational sector by the end of the day? What percentage will be released? What percentage, we are now in May, what percentage of that money have been released to the educational sector? So that's the question we should ask ourselves. Are the money being released? And if they are being released, are universities, let's say universities, allowed to spend their money? The answer is no. They come with TSA, come with IPPIS, so that the ministry also, the money is controlled by the bureaucrat. For a vice chancellor to build a toilet in university, you have to go and get permission from the ministry. You have to go to somewhere, Bureau of Public Procurement, what have you. Does that happen anywhere in the world? If the universities are allowed to run their system with their money, many universities will be independent by investing their money here and there so that they get money from the investment, as done all over the world, and then you can run your system. But today, every kobo you want to spend, you must get the permission of the bureaucrat to spend 1 kobo. And they actually the one releasing the money. So no money comes to the university. At the end, how do you run a system that way? And you think it will grow? So we need to look, we have done the analysis. The budget allocation to this year is less than 7%. But the least in Africa is about 15%. And that's where the lacuna is. And that's why our children will go to Ghana. Our lecturer will go to Benin. Our children will go to Ghana, South Africa. But no South Africans will come here. That tells you that something is wrong. We don't even, not ASUU, it doesn't have to be ASUU that will raise all these issues. If you are a government of a country who pride itself as the giant of Africa, that no lecturer come from any other part of West Africa or Africa to come and teach, or Europe. Meanwhile, you go to South Africa, all these other countries, Benin Republic, Togo, what have you, and you see Nigerian lecturing, people going for that, you know something is wrong with your system and you have to correct it. And that's what we are saying.
So, Professor, you mentioned something about alternatives to funding, and that interested me. I'm wondering, what alternatives are these? Are you a proponent for private education, or perhaps maybe the new student loan policy that's being bandied about currently? Where do you stand?
Let me give you this. In 1992, we were on strike like this, and the Vision Agreement, and government said they cannot fund it. And we said, okay, give you 1 week, we'll come back to you and see what we can do. Within 1 week, came with a proposal. We then, the military, we looked at it and said it's correct, and they adopted it. It was military. And that's the origin of TET fund today. TET fund, that's the origin. If you go around all Nigerian universities, without TET fund, there would not be federal university or state university today. We would all be dead, like primary and secondary schools. Is the idea of ASUU. Similarly, when you look at the agreement we have today, I'm not going to devote the content of the government agreed to sign. We also have a recommendation there that will enable the system move. Let me give you a quick example. Last year, the federal government increased the tax, education tax, increase it, and ensure that all the companies, no matter who you are, pays. But what has the government done? It took more than 20 years to agree to increase it by 1%. And you look at that 1%, last year, that 1% today, TET fund this year had 600 and something billion to distribute. But last year it was 200 and something billion. So that is the problem. They will not listen to our side. They will not listen to your education. But if these recommendations come from one small group in abroad, they would adopt it. But for us, we tell them something to do, they will not listen to it until we go on strike. Which is unnecessary. We can sit down and look at all the issues, and then we'll resolve it. As long as we speak, so many companies are not paying this education tax. Especially a company owned by Nigerians. Big men, Nigerians, who are making so much money, they don't pay the tax.
Now, Professor Osodeke, let's make a case for the students, shall we? We know that the strikes have been every other year. In the year of 2022, it was 8 months. And now we are threatening for another strike. Can there be another way so that we can leave our children in classrooms to be able to learn and just toss them and prepare them for the workforce? Because it's ever changing, you know? Is there another way around this instead of continual strikes?
Thank you. For the past 11 months, we have been using all these other ways. Since the regime was inaugurated, we have been using these other ways you are talking about. Writing letters, appealing for meeting, but nobody listens to you. So I haven't used all this way in 11 months and nothing happened. So what do we do? Look, let me explain to you, to Nigerians. Since the introduction of this education loan and the resulting hike in fees and charges by university, not less than 15% of Nigerian children or the poor have dropped out. And if we continue this way, in the next 2-3 years, 30% would have dropped out. And as a union, we want every Nigerian to be able to have access to education. Go and check the statistics, it will show you. See, they introduced in hacking of fees in all universities, you are aware of the demonstration by students. Not less than 15% of the students have dropped out of school. So what would these children become in future? Good and big volume for criminality. You force them out because they couldn't pay fee. That is where we are fighting against. But can the government do better? The answer is yes. Then for the student loan, you see, what I saw as the budget for this year is about this 6 or 7 billion or 80 billion. So what would that do to Nigerian university? If all these students apply for this loan, how many will get? Can the children, just like Nigeria, a normal in Nigeria, can any poor man, any ordinary Nigerian children secure appointment in Central Bank, in NNPC, in all these big parastatals? Can they today? Even in all the ministries, do you see her advertisement? So the same thing. If this money become available, you will also find out it's only the children of the big men that will have access to this loan, not the children of the poor, because they cannot afford it, they cannot meet the criteria. So for us, we should do the right thing.
Professor Osodeke, I think you said it all. Thank you very much. Do the right thing, you said. I want to thank you so much for coming on and giving us insight into these issues. Thank you very much, Professor Emmanuel Osodeke, as the National Chairman of ASUU.